Okay, folks, I think we'll go ahead and get started. I think more people are joining as we speak, but just want to go ahead and respect everyone's time. Um, so what I've done is I've muted everyone, but if you have a question as I'm speaking, please go ahead and unmute yourself and just let me know what you're thinking. Um, and then I'm just going to talk for maybe 5 minutes, and then we can go ahead and answer questions, and then hopefully have a little bit more of a discussion amongst everyone. So, and yeah. So thank you all for being here. It's obviously a very difficult time. Um, I was listening to a podcast yesterday and really putting it in perspective. This is one of the most significant global crises that sort of the human population has ever faced when looking at the potential um, for um, sort of people losing their lives across the world. And so dealing with it is obviously a the first priority, and making sure that we have health and safety and that we flatten the curve. um, I know that it's sort of upended, everyone's lives. I'm very thankful. I know many of us are thankful to be able to shelter in place and to, be secure in our jobs. But there are so many people who are losing their jobs. There are so many people who are not able to shelter in place. There are people who are essential workers and who can't, who are really putting themselves on the line. um, there was, unfortunately, today, you may have seen, but two Akron firefighters tested positive for coronavirus, and they were in the same station. They are, under quarantine. The station has been sanitized, but it speaks to a broader point that there are a lot of people who are putting themselves on the line to keep us safe during this time, and hopefully we can get through this as quickly as possible with as little loss of life as possible. The reason I wanted to have this meeting was because, the job of a council person is to connect, to be a bridge between the city government and city services and the community. And the way we typically do that is through community meetings and gatherings, but we've had to cancel those. And so I just wanted to have this, as an opportunity to have some discussion. And I appreciate you all being here. Um, while the situation is really dire, we all have the ability to fix this, right? We can see how our actions are reducing the curve. We can see uh, in the number of cases, right? Ohio is a much larger state than Michigan or Illinois, but we have less cases. And so I think that, you know, if there's any silver lining to this, it's that we're seeing, despite all of our divisions, despite all of the chaos, my health is intimately connected to Roger and Gwen's health, is connected to all of your health, and is connected to the health of strangers that we don't even know. And so we're all kind of in this together, and we all have the ability to fix it together. Um, from a local perspective, I've been really heartened to see. I'm not supposed to touch my face. I've been very happy to see. We talk a lot about collaboration in this community, but we've really seen it in practice here. Summit County Public Health is kind of the tip of the spear here, but they're working hand in hand with Summit County and its different offices, with Mayor Horgan and his administration, with the United Way of Summit County, which has set up their relief fund, with the food bank, and with Akron Public Schools. And so, that to me is really an example of how we're tackling it. Obviously, as you said, we do have a number of cases here, and there was the Summit County resident who passed away. Elizabeth, you asked about Ward 8. It's my understanding that Summit County Public Health is not able to release, or has not released, the more specific sort of neighborhood level information. I know that some communities have done that, but at this point, Summit County Public Health has not done that. So I can't speak to whether the people who have passed away, or the people who are um, who have tested positive are in Ward 8. I would say, though, that by any law of numbers, it definitely is something that is in every single community. And so it's something that at this point, we have to we all kind of have for the time being, we all have to assume that we have it and that we can pass it on to people. And so we have to stay in place. Um, the other things locally, um, obviously the governor's leadership and Dr. Acton's leadership have been very inspiring. And I think we all can continue to take some solace in the fact that we have people who are guiding the ship who have that perspective and who are willing to make tough decisions. Um, in terms of testing, local testing there is in the works, but really there's still such a bottleneck in terms of production and in terms of getting everything straightened out. So I don't think it's going to be for at least a couple of weeks. And at this point, like I said before, testing is it's useful epidemiologically, and also to, if there's a very serious case, to indicate whether they have corona or not. But I think it's going to be more valuable when we're on the other half of the curve and we're then trying to isolate the cases as they continue to, as we lift some of the restrictions. Um, so obviously, some of these things you have all heard, but the things that we can do, the concrete things we can do, are obviously staying at home as much as possible, supporting local businesses. I know that we've all been doing that, but there's a website that some great folks put together, Support Local Akron, that has businesses on there. And, whether it's buying a gift card or buying takeout or delivery or what have you. Visiting the parks, we are, I think, we're now getting a trial by fire of how great our parks are. I think we all appreciate the parks. We do have to make sure to be safe about it. I think almost every park I've been to in the last few days has had a full parking lot, and so there's danger in us all leaving our offices but going all to the same location. I think, it's there's no black and white lines. Everyone should try to social distance as much as possible, and not put themselves in situations that are crowded. At the same time, I recognize that it's important to get out. I recognize that on the days that I haven't left the house, I've noticed myself being more snippy than I would like. Um, so, I think that we are, the other things that you can donate to the United Way Fund online. They are just starting now to disperse money to different organizations. Part of the difficulty here is the uncertainty of all of it, right? We don't know whether this is going to end in a couple of weeks or a couple of months. And, today the governor said that he thinks this will peak around the middle of May. What that means for the restrictions is really anyone's guess. I don't want to really speculate. But that being said, we all have to. I was talking to some of the local business owners today, and no one really knows what to do, but we're all just going to kind of take this day by day. Um, I think that trying to find a silver lining in all of this is important. Um, Whether it's a project that you've been trying to do around the house, or if you wanted to uh, focus on cooking, or catching up with people who you'd never have time to catch up with. I have made every meal in the last like week and a half for myself. It's not something that ever happened in any other point of my life. So I think there is some silver lining, obviously, to a tremendously negative situation. With that being said, that's really all that I wanted to say. But happy to Danielle's point there. Yes, the Akron Community Foundation also has a fund, and the food bank is also taking donations. So there are a number of ways to give back. I think the so yeah. With that, please let me know if you have a question. Either raise your hand or just unmute yourself and ask the question, and I'll do my best to address it.
Seamus, Linda
Question?
Wilcox here. I have a question. Is the construction down?
We have in the meeting Dr. NJ Akbar from our Akron School Board, and I'm glad that he's here. He's the vice president of our school board, and I wanted to invite him to say a few words about what the school board is doing, and not just about instruction, but also the meals program that they're working on. So NJ, if you can.
Okay, someone was asking a question. I didn't hear it though.
Can people hear?
Someone was asking a question. What was the question?
I was asking if this is Linda Wilcox. I was asking if the construction is still going on downtown.
Construction?
The construction downtown, is it still going on through all this? Or is
I'm not sure. I can look into that and get back to you on that.
I was just wondering if the end date of all that is going to push out.
Yeah, I would assume that it was. I'm sorry for everyone who was just listening. I realized that while I was speaking, I had it muted, so that obviously must have created a lot of confusion. That being said, yeah, I will check on the construction. Were there other questions before we go to NJ? Okay, NJ, if you'd like to go ahead.
Okay. It's good to see some familiar faces. So for the schools, we have done everything we can to ensure that our students and our employees, our staff members, our teachers have the support that they need. We are doing everything we can to make sure that everyone has some type of meaningful work, and that there's at this point, hopefully no need to ask for furloughs or do any layoffs or anything like that. So we're doing everything we can to galvanize our entire workforce. As you know, APS employs a large number of individuals in this city, and we're doing everything we can to make sure that they and their families are taken care of. As far as our young people, as you know, on Monday, on March 30th, we'll start online instruction for everyone. We did at our last meeting last Monday, we asked all of our instructional staff to come back to begin preparing their lessons for an online environment. Akron Public Schools is pretty blessed in the way in which we have moved to increasing our availability of online learning. And all of our students have Chromebooks, as well as they've already gotten used to having Google Hangouts and Google Classroom. So most of our students, this won't be very new to them. It will be something that's just a little more long-term than they're used to right now. And so that's what we are doing. We know that there's other school districts like Cleveland, for example, that are totally unprepared to do any type of online learning. And that's kind of unfortunate. We want to do everything we can to make sure that our district and our students don't have to do too many makeup days at the end. And so I think we only took 5 calamity days, which are like snow days basically. And so that's what we're doing with our students to make sure that they have the instruction they need. And also we have served 75,400 meals in the last 6 days. Well, it's not 6 exact days, but 6 days that we made available for meals to be served. And that in the last day, which was yesterday alone, we had 22,000 meals served. So we're doing the best we can to get the word out to families. We're also looking at partnering with different organizations, especially in some of the areas where we began busing students to school because of the distance that they are from a school. And so we're looking at partnering with some organizations to get what we're calling those distant areas served. And so that is something hopefully we'll be able to talk about next week or soon, what organizations will be working with in those areas. So um, I guess the last thing I'll say is on the website there is on akronschools.org. You can find our COVID-19 update daily. It will be posted by 3 p.m. every day, so you can find out what's going on in the district every day on that website in the COVID daily announcement. Any changes, any updates. We also are live streaming our meetings. Our meetings are, well, we're having a few more than we normally do right now. So we have a meeting coming up on April the 2nd, which is next Thursday, as well as we have a meeting on Monday the 6th. So just so you know, you can also go to akronschools.com, I'm sorry, .org to find our live stream meetings as well that you can watch right there at home. I ask that everyone understand that no one asked for this and that we're all responding the best way we can, and that we give everyone a bowl full of grace as much as possible. We have some amazing administrators. If nothing, if for me, what I found is if this situation did nothing else, it showed the resolve that we have here in Akron and the great resources we have in our schools. So with that, anything you have questions about, let me know. But I'll do my best to make sure that when Shaman sends those updates, that I send them updates to add to the newsletter. So
Yeah, thank you so much, NJ. I really echo what you said about a bowl full of grace. I think we can all, you know, cut each other a little bit of slack and cut ourselves a little bit of slack. You know, it's a really difficult situation, and we're all just sort of getting through it the best we can. There were a couple of questions. One was about the city council. So we suspended in-person meetings. Last Friday, we had our final in-person meeting for the foreseeable future, and we approved the budget. Um, the state legislature actually made a change to the law yesterday, which now allows us to have our meetings virtually and discuss regular business. Previously, we could only discuss emergency business virtually. And so I believe we will be meeting, not this coming Monday, but I believe the following Monday is my understanding, and then going forward virtually via Zoom, which we can all see is a perfect program with no hiccups or challenges. But we did a little bit of a test drive last Friday, so we should be on top of it. Those will also be live streamed on the City Council YouTube page. So we'll do our best to continue um, to function and to support as the mayor takes a lot of different steps. I'm sure that you guys have seen, but he is taking steps to today instituted a mandatory employee medical screening so that everyone is going to have their temperature taken as they come in. Only 2/3 of the city workers are currently working to ensure that essential services go forward while limiting folks who can be home, so that we can while making sure that folks can be home at wherever possible to avoid the spread. Elizabeth, you had a question about businesses that were closed by Summit County Public Health. I'm now 0 for 2 on your questions because I'm going to have to check with Summit County Public Health. But I will check with them and I'll get back to you. I know that some people had expressed concerns to me about different entities where they didn't feel like the sanitation, whether there wasn't Purell available or things like that. And so if you have something like that, please let me know. We want to, I think none of these measures are intended to be punitive, but where there are essential businesses, we want to make sure they're operating sanitarily. And where they're not essential businesses, they really need to be closed down. And so that's going to hurt people's bottom line. And that is an unfortunate reality. This is a unique situation in which we have, usually when there's an economic recession, it is not self-imposed. Here we have ourselves turned off part of the economy, and that is very unusual and it's very uncomfortable. But it's something that we sort of have to do for now. Um, I don't, let's see, I was going to ask Officer Aaron Brown, who is our neighborhood response team officer with APD, if he would be willing to say a few words about what APD is doing. So Aaron, if you're available, would you be able to give us an update?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Thank you, Shamus. So yes, things that we're doing as far as the police department are concerned, we are trying to restrict our access to the public as far as calls for service. Obviously, any call that involves some type of fight, personal injury, we're going to respond in person. But say if somebody needs a report, a car was broken into, a theft was, or some type of theft where there's no suspect information, if those type of calls can be handled over the phone, we're doing that with what's called telephone report officers. And then obviously we're taking precautions as to if we're responding to high-rise buildings, densely populated buildings, to ensure we have our masks on, gloves. And also our supervision is meeting with AFD's supervision on a daily basis to make sure that we're working hand in hand together. And again, we haven't had too many issues as far as complaints about bars or restaurants still operating, not listening to the governor, which has been a great thing. I think I've only known two calls, one in Ellett and one in Kenmore, where we had reports of our bars still operating. But if anybody should be out and see they think a bar is opening and operating, please call us and we will deal with it accordingly. And that liquor license will then be up to the subject of the governor, and will be suspended most likely. So, but yeah, everybody, as far as businesses and people, have been doing a pretty good job just driving around, seeing a lot more people out and about, but people are keeping their distance, so that's a good thing. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to take them.
Any questions for Aaron?
There is one question that says, is crime down at all?
I don't have the exact numbers in front of me. I can tell you just from working every day since this has happened, there are different types of crimes that I would say have decreased and another type of crimes that have increased. We have seen an increase in domestic violence, which is to be expected, whether that be two adults, boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, or children and adults arguing, not getting along. That's typical when, you're cooped up in a house with somebody. As far as any other type of crime, not, I can't speak again to, I don't have the exact numbers, but it seems that there has been a decrease, at least in residential burglaries, as more people are home, so people aren't breaking into houses when people are home. I have noticed that. What just happened there?
Sorry, I put you on the thing because I figured people didn't need to look at me if you were talking.
Oh, okay. Sorry. It's my first time Zooming, so I'm kind of new to this whole thing too. So yeah, that's, but every day is different. Today it seems there's been an increase in fight calls outside. But all in all, I'd say as far as call volume goes over the past couple of weeks, it's been fairly quiet. So is there any other questions?
So Officer Brown, do you patrol the metro parks at all, or is that another security department that does that?
Our officers, we'll ride through like San Run Parkway to get to other places, but the park rangers through Summit County are actually the ones that enforce and handle any issues that come in any of the metro parks. Okay.
The reason I asked is, and you might encounter this in the city parks eventually as well. It just seems the crowds accumulating in the parks are unable to maintain social distance because of the number of people. And I was hoping that our safety corps could help coach people when they're in the parks to spread out for all of our safety.
Well, again, yeah, the problem with that is, the governor said you can go out and exercise, and while it seems people are trying, eventually, if you're gonna, the trail's not wide enough. If you're gonna walk past somebody, you
Yeah,
are gonna come within 6 feet of them. So
Yeah, that's for sure. We noticed that on one of the trails out to Brandywine. Trails are only a person wide, and it was pretty crowded.
and
I
that's
think,
something that,
go ahead.
go ahead, Thomas.
No, go ahead, Eric.
I was just gonna say that's something people need to think about too when they go to the parks. I know people want to go out and enjoy the parks, but also you're going out, like Shama said, people aren't at work, so they're all going to one place, and it's creating almost the same thing where you have large groups that would have been somewhere else, but now we're all in the park. So, I love the parks and I get out and exercise, but I've personally just been running around my neighborhood just because there's not as many people out and I can cross the street, go to the other side of the sidewalk, where I'd much rather be down running on the towpath, but that's just me personally. So,
Yeah, and to that point, I think that we have to encourage people to make smart decisions themselves. And the whether you're going, maybe you can go to one of the more remote metro parks that has a variety of trails, so that you're the um, so that you're really able to regulate that, or go to Schneider Park and pick out like your little section or what have you. But obviously it's not perfect, and I understand your concern, Tom. NJ had an additional point that there are mobile hotspots that are available for students that need them. The information is there in the chat, so please reach out if there's someone who might need that. Obviously, we want to make sure everyone is able to access the distance learning as that becomes available. Are there any other more general questions? Okay, well, the next thing I wanted to do was just hopefully have a little bit of discussion amongst everyone, just sort of taking stock of how folks are feeling, and how we're handling this situation. One of the things I wanted to talk about was, are there aspects of community life that you have noticed yourself missing, that you were surprised by, things that you maybe didn't value that much before it was gone? um, I know, for me, I think just realizing that there's value in having, like, sort of meetings and gatherings, right? It's hard when we're all kind of in groups of one or two to feel like you're part of a broader community. So, I don't know if anyone else has thoughts. Yeah.
Hey, Shamus.
Andy, Roger, yeah, can you?
Yeah, just wanted to alert people, this is the first time we've ever used a delivery or pickup from the grocery stores, and it worked out very well for us. I think the initial charge with Giant Eagle it was free because it was the first time we'd ever used it. I warn people that if you're going to use that service, you need to let them know a week ahead of time before you need the groceries, because there are slots that fill up pretty quickly. So you can't, it's not like I need milk, I'm going to get it today. You have to wait for a week and get a slot that's available for them to deliver. And it was less than $6 at Giant Eagle. At Acme, we picked up the groceries. They put them in the car for us. That was $2. So again, it's a case of it took about 7 days before our order could be filled because there are so many folks who need the service. So in case you haven't used it yet, it was great, and I advise you try it. That's it.
Thank you. I think to that point, that actually reminds me that, I really, I'm really thankful for the local groceries that we have here. Acme and Mustard Seed and Giant Eagle too, I think, have done a really good job keeping things stocked and keeping things pretty sanitary. So I think that's been, they're also in a very difficult situation. You've got kids, not kids, but you have obviously have, people from high school all the way on up who are working there and doing us a service that does put themselves at some risk. So I
So,
also,
Shamus,
Tom, go ahead.
Shamus, along those lines,
Yeah.
the farmers market that occurs out at Old Trail also has scheduled pickup times where you can order your food in advance online and pick it up at the farmers market.
Yeah, I saw that, and they've I think on their feed, they've on their Facebook, they've sort of laid out instructions for how they're going to do that in a very hands-off way. So they're going to have people driving through and then having the bags just passed into the car so that people won't have to park and get out. As anyone who's been to that farmers market knows, it can be a traffic night. It can be a traffic incident to rival downtown Akron. We'll put it that way.
Yeah, Elizabeth put the link to their website for ordering
There we
in the
go.
chat.
Thank
Good.
you, Elizabeth.
Hey, Shamus, it's Gina Kay. I just wanted to say that, first of all, thank you for hosting this, and I'm grateful for technology. I've been working at home for the last couple of weeks, and all I've run into around town and in this neighborhood has been civility and people, just trying to get along and being extra courteous. So I think times like this can bring out the best in people or the worst. And unfortunately, I have seen the best in people lately.
No, thank you for saying that. And I think the one of the things that the mayor's office is going to try to do is spotlight some of the people who are really going above and beyond, whether as a business or whether as individuals, to help out others in this time. So if you have a particular story of someone you want to share, you think ought to be spotlighted, you can send a Facebook message to the mayor's Facebook page, or you can send an email to mayor@akronohio.gov. I'll put it there in the comments. But I think it's important that we focus on the helpers, as the familiar Mr. Rogers saying goes. Especially in difficult times, that's when we see the best in people. One of the other questions I had was, have you seen creative ways of engaging community and neighbors through this time, from an appropriate distance? I know one of the things that I've seen on Nextdoor has been this bear hunt thing, where people have put like teddy bears in their windows, and then people will take their kids on a walk in the neighborhood and see if they can spot some of the bears. And obviously these are small things, but I think that it's important, I think the last thing that our community needs as a long-term macro thing is more social distance, right? We need physical distance right now, and no one's saying we should stay away from social distancing, but we all need to make sure that we still value ourselves as a community. So does anyone have any thoughts or ideas, or has anyone seen any creative things in that regard?
Yeah, hi, this is Joe Abraham. I happen to live in a great neighborhood, and the kids have been drawing hopscotch boards on the sidewalk. So as you go for a walk, you see people kind of hopping along on the sidewalk, and it's just a nice little change of pace. It's nice to see the kids out there trying to do something good for the neighbors as well.
Hi, this is Elizabeth Bartz. I was going to say, a friend of mine in University Heights took a picture of his neighbors. They were all in their driveways. And so tomorrow I was going to just sit out in my driveway and see if anybody else came out.
No, I think Elizabeth, I want to shout out your glasses. I like your glasses there. But two, I think that's a lot of people are doing that. I had a conversation with a neighbor that I've never seen while I was out there putting out the trash the other day, and I know that some of the neighbors on Keith they went out and they sang like America the Beautiful, I think it was, at like 5 p.m. on like one of the days just now. And it was just that they were all in their driveways. So I think, I know there are different Facebook groups, like the Castle Park neighbors and other groups for the different, very small micro neighborhoods. So I think that trying to engage with people as much as possible from a safe distance, it is very important.
We've used Zoom to have a family get together already. We had cousins and everybody, and that was a pretty good event. But we've also have a scheduled Zoom wine night on Sunday night with our normal wine night where we'd go out to a winery, but we're going to do it in our living rooms on Wednesday. So.
Yeah, it's everyone is finding ways to take all of our old activities online. Any other thoughts about community engagement?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. The library has virtual story times online.
Yeah.
There are online collections. You can get books or audiobooks. There's movies, music, TV shows. There is a online book club starting. You should, if you haven't seen anything yet on our page or Facebook page, you should be seeing a link to that. And I believe there'll be more content coming out. If you don't have a library card, you can sign up for a library card online through the Overdrive app. So you'll at least have access to that collection if you don't currently have a library card.
And
Go
the
ahead, please.
times they're on the library's Facebook page, is that right?
Well, I would, if you want, I would go to the library website, and then from there you should be able to get links to everything. We do have informational links for COVID-19. And we also have the Ask a Librarian service. If you guys have a question, you can ask us a question right on our website. We'll try to get an answer for you as quickly as possible.
Thank you so much, Craig.
Shamus, if you can unmute Stephanie Lee, she has a couple of announcements from church.
Sure, Pastor Lee, you should be unmuted.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, a couple of announcements. One is that our food pantry is open every Wednesday now from 10 to noon during this coronavirus stuff going on. And also, we are streaming. I don't know about other churches in the area, but we are streaming our worship services, and I'm doing some devotionals during the week in case anyone is interested. It's at Christ Woodland United Methodist Church, and it will be live streamed on Facebook. Our service starts on Sunday at 10:30, so if anybody's interested in that, that's available.
And I think, thank you so much.
Pastor Lee,
Yes.
this is Gina Kay. Has the bishop said when services would resume for United Methodist Churches in this conference?
No.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, no, the bishop has not said that we are going to be back in worship. That's still out, and we'll have to find out, or we'll have to see when that's instituted. My hunch is probably not until at least the end of April or into May.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And thank you so much, Pastor. I know that a lot of the different religious clergy that we have in the area have been sharing videos and sermons and services on their specific Facebooks. And I know they've been doing that for Temple Israel and Bethel Synagogue and a number of the churches as well. And I think that, again, it's something that they were doing in some ways beforehand, but again, with Corona, I think it is, we really appreciate it.
Thank you.
I have a question for everyone.
Go ahead.
Okay, I didn't know if you could hear me. Okay, so I know I've been talking to a few people and they've been going a little stir crazy. So I just wanted to figure out from everyone, what do you feel or what are you doing to kind of keep yourself from going stir crazy, to keep your mind active and engaged.
Anybody want to?
Somebody mentioned the library. I've discovered that I can not only read books online, but I have access to all my favorite British comedies. So I'm watching shows that I normally can't watch.
Yeah, I think everyone is getting new streaming recommendations. I don't know if anyone watches Ozark, but season 3 came out this morning. But yeah, I think it's important that we find ways not to be too stir crazy while staying safe. It really is. I think for those of us who are lucky enough to be able to work from home or shelter at home, I think it can seem like, oh, well, this is okay. But I think there is some kind of traumatic, aspect to this where there's a lot of mental anxiety associated with something that's scary. And I think, it's important that we deal with that. There are a number of mental health resources that are available online. The Summit County ADM board has a number of resources on their website that are geared towards Corona. And then also Officer Brown mentioned before domestic violence and how unfortunately that's something that spikes when more people are at home. There also the battered women shelter is still open and is can be called anytime. And so those resources are there as well. If you know of anyone who might need those resources, whether for mental health or for something more serious, something a kind of crisis, please know that they're available.
One of the things,
Go ahead.
if I could add one thing, this is Elizabeth Marshall. One of the things I think if anybody does have anxiety or they're struggling, I think getting off social media or reducing your news consumption and really focusing on keeping in touch with people is really important, because you can get very overwhelmed with those channels and everybody has an opinion and everybody's trying to make, grab the headlines these days. So even referencing things like the Good News Network to be positively aware of what's going on. And then the other suggestion I had is just utilize free music resources that are online, whether it's Pandora or Spotify. Those don't require any, expenses from you, but music can be a really great positive mood altering thing. So I think those are things that people should consider.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. And you had a question about the hospitals and how they're doing. All the hospitals are trying to figure out how they can increase their number of beds. But I think the issue that hasn't been talked about as much is the workforce, because as many as 20% of the people who are contracting COVID-19 are in the healthcare sector, people who are being exposed because of that. And so a lot of hospitals are trying to operate on less staff so that so that they sort of conserve the staff and not getting sick for when capacity is needed. There was an article that Betty Lynn Fisher at the Beacon wrote, I think it was 2 days ago, about some of the preparations and some concerns about the preparations. But I would say that this is an area that the state is, I think, taking a strong role in as well, and really talking to all the hospitals, all the hospital providers about how they sort of scale up, because this really, if we look at where this could go, like what's going on in New York, that's really where the need is. From a supply perspective, I think everyone knows this, but if you have the PPE, the personal protective equipment, or if you're able to sew masks or things like that, please reach out. I think Summit County has Summit County Public Health has more information, but they really need all of the PPE that they can get their hands on. And obviously that's true all around the country, but if you know of something, please, sort of don't hesitate to reach out, because that's important. Jack just made a point about the election. I think Gina K also asked, if the election, there's not going to be in-person voting for the primary, except for very, very, very limited accessibility for folks with disabilities or folks who very narrow aspects. But what you'll need to do is get a vote by mail, an absentee ballot application from the Secretary of State's website, print it out, and then send it to the local Board of Elections. They'll send you a ballot, and with the postage prepaid, and then you have to send it back postmarked by April 27th, or you can drop it off in person at the board by April 28th. But if you mail it, it has to be mailed by April 27th. And it is confusing, but the Ohio Secretary of State's website has a lot of information to clarify things. And if you're not able to get an absentee ballot application, or there's an issue, please let me know. We want to make sure that everyone has the opportunity to vote. If you already voted in the primary, if you early voted, then that vote counts. You're fine. You're good. It's over. Obviously, this is another one of those situations where, the timing of the primary with how COVID came about was just absolutely terrible. And I think, the governor who's doing his best, had a very difficult choice to make with not a lot of time. So.
Is the Board of Elections open?
The Board of Elections is open.
It's on Grant Street. Is that open?
It
Where
is
you
open.
can drop off of?
It is open. So you can go ahead and you can physically drop off the absentee ballot application form there. Right?
Okay, right.
But, it may be most prudent right now to go ahead and mail it.
Yeah.
There is we have a month here, but it doesn't have to be mailed, but it can be, or it can be dropped off.
Right. I just don't have a lot of faith in the mail system sometimes.
Yeah.
I want to make sure my vote gets counted.
I agree. Pastor Lee asked about coronavirus testing. We do not yet have testing in the area. That's something that's being worked on amongst the county and the city of Akron. It is going to be at least a couple of weeks. I don't have a great sense of it, but it is going to be at least a couple of weeks. And that's true, obviously, all across the nation. So right now, the only people who are being tested are the people who are in those highest risk categories, who are showing, very severe symptoms. As we go forward, I sorry to be repetitive, but as we go forward, when we're on the other end of the curve, testing will be very helpful of isolating the cases that do pop up. But right now, we sort of have to act like everyone has it and sort of self-quarantine ourselves to the extent possible. But it is frustrating.
I had a question about voting.
Sure.
For people who might not have access to like a printer, what resources are available now to print something off and be able to send it by mail or what have you?
Yeah, so there's not a great answer to that, because a lot of people would use the library. I have told people that I would go ahead and print some off and deliver them to their house if need be. Obviously, that's not a perfect solution. My understanding, and I would want to confirm this with the Board of Elections, but my understanding is that it doesn't have to be a formal voter application form. So someone could possibly go down to the Board of Elections and write down, I blank person from this party, but I wouldn't recommend that. So if you have a concern, if there's a need, Amokar, we can get together and we can figure it out. But we want to make sure everyone has the opportunity to vote.
got the
Thank you.
icons in my picture. I don't know how I want it to work.
So everyone, as Jack and Becca are pointing out, if you call the Board of Elections, they will mail you one. I think that's right. I think the Secretary of State, because of the way the state law is set up, is not necessarily allowed to send out these automatically, which is frustrating. But I think in an ideal world, you just send everyone who's registered and hasn't voted yet their ballot. But that isn't the way that the state legislature ultimately, made the decision. So, are there other questions or other thoughts that people have?
Unanimous, you hear me?
Yes.
I'm just curious about the testing, like they're doing in Cleveland, the University hospitals and the clinic with drive-through testing with doctor's permission.
Yeah.
Or anything on that in the Akron area coming up?
Yeah, my understanding, and again, it's very limited understanding, but my understanding is that there are plans for drive-through testing, but logistics just simply aren't in place to be able to go ahead with that right now. I don't know whether it's the availability of the tests themselves or what have you, but I do know that that's not immediately available. And so right now, right now there's only very limited instances in which people are being tested. Just a word about resources. All of the hospitals have online tools that will allow for, sort of telehealth diagnoses, or at least check-ins. They also all have hotlines. I think that is probably the first engagement that people should have with the health facilities, rather than sort of going down to one of the hospitals and trying to go walk in the ER. That's not to say that people shouldn't walk in the ER, and I am, as a lawyer, not qualified to give medical advice. But obviously we just want to be cognizant about not overloading our healthcare resources. But obviously, if you have symptoms, please, have them addressed. But there are these resources for the hotlines and the telehealth to be able to sort of, that allows the hospitals to help triage. Other thoughts or other questions or other ideas? One of the, go ahead, I'll just talk forever.
The Akron Makerspace is building surgical masks and face shields for local healthcare workers. If you have a sewing machine at home, go ahead and you can go to Joann Fabrics and they will provide you with the materials and the plans to make these. You can also contact the, where to put it? The Emergency Medical Agency of Summit County. I put the details in the chat there to contact them. If you are a medical provider that needs some of these items, we're making specifically to donate to hospitals and stuff in the area, all the way up to Paynesville is also getting a load of them from us. So if you have any needs for stuff like that, go ahead and contact that number or that email that I had listed there in the group chat, so you can get some safety gear for your workers.
Thank you so much. I mean, that's a great thing that you guys are doing. And there are a couple of things being mentioned in the comments. I'm gesturing sideways because I have the second monitor here where I have the comments. But Peloton, and Pastor Lee mentioned Calm, the app which is used for mindfulness. There's also YouTube videos of yoga, which I have been told about and have aspired to try, but have been altogether busy to, or maybe reluctant to engage in yet, but one day. So there are a lot of different things that we can work on. I had a lot of those resources that we're talking about, I had tried to put together in a Google Doc. I'll put the Google Doc here in the comments. But I'd also emailed it out. If you don't have access to it, please let me know. I've tried to compile as many of the resources as possible that are Corona related. So yeah. Any other thoughts, folks? I don't want to keep people forever, but.
In case anyone has missed it, if they have kids impacted from work or learning at home and don't have internet, Spectrum is offering free 60 days of internet right now. There is a unique toll-free number you have to dial in order to get the offer. I can post that in the comments, but it's a good one if anyone needs access to internet.
Yes, and Spectrum, and I think basically all utilities in the state, most utilities have committed not to, sorry, I'm sending I just posted the Google Doc. But anyways, most of the utilities have committed not to having disconnects during this time. Akron Water is not having disconnects during this time. But no, it's a great offer from Spectrum. Obviously, as we're all kind of either teleworking or distance learning, or really relying on our internet connection more than we did before. So I'm mindful of everyone's time, and I said it would end at 6, so I have 60 seconds to vamp now. But are there any final thoughts that people have before we go?
Thank you, Shamus. I think this is a great idea.
Oh, thank you, and thank you all for being here. I think, it seems likely that we will not be having an April ward meeting in person. And so I think we will probably try to do this again next month. I want to be accessible. Please give me a call, text me, email me if there's something that I can help with. The last thing I'd say is just echoing what we've said the whole time, which is that we're all in this together, right? And we're all a part of the solution. We're all doing our best, and we can give each other, I think what was NJ's, a bowl full of grace that we can give each other. And I appreciate all of you. I appreciate all of you for your interest, and I appreciate all of you for taking time. So, thank you so much.
Thanks, Shamus.